Defiance Season 3, Episode 8. My name is Datak Tarr, and I have come to kill you. This was definitely an amazing episode. It's probably my second favorite episode after the one with Nolan and Arissa kind of having their flashbacks, because this one had a lot of great moments to it. We got to see a very sad and serious moment after Nolan realized that he was being tricked and all those people inside of that tunnel were killed off. I knew it was going to happen. I knew at least that the son was going to die. I honestly thought that he would die for sure, and maybe a couple other people would die, because I thought it would happen inside of the tunnel. And they kind of messed around with that idea when his gun went off by accident. And he's like, sorry about that, I'm not really used to all this. So they played around with it like, oh, he was just shot and he gasped. But instead, everyone is killed off at one time. And I'm sure we're still going to see repercussions from that in the next episode, because we don't really see them in this one as far as his father dealing with Nolan. And he could still be mad, but ultimately it was his son's choice, and he even fought against him compared to what he did initially when he was like, sorry, he's my dad, and he left from the training. He decided to follow Nolan despite what his father said, before he went into the tunnel. So it was a really dramatic and sad moment. And that was the second one after the beginning of this episode, which was in the trailer, so I knew it was going to happen, but it was every single person outside of, Nolan and Amanda. And, there were like a couple other people, but for the most part, everyone, out of the humans at least, who was lined up, on the floor, they were mostly all killed off. And there were just, bodies, laying next to each other. And it was one of those moments where you're rooting for the good guys, but it makes you wonder, like, did they make the right choice? Did Amanda choose the right decision? Like, was there any way around it? Could she have said, like, okay, we'll do this? And, obviously she didn't know that they had a spy kind of in their ranks, but it's like, she goes off, you kind of leave, your lawkeeper there. Nolan tends to figure things out anyway, so kind of leave him there to do something and take out these two guys. Or, you have one as an escort, you take him down, Nolan takes out the other person. That most likely still would have led to some issues, because obviously they had the other guy there. But, compared to what happened, it was like, it just makes you wonder from the very beginning, like, was this the right thing? And then you have that moment, which was Amanda's bad choice, and then you have the tunnel, which was Nolan's bad choice, because Amanda wanted to just blow it up and, seal things off. And it was just like, he carried that, even from the very beginning, which technically, like I said, was Amanda's choice. He still carried both those moments in that ending scene where they had the music playing, and he's just, sitting in the bar drinking and thinking to himself. And there was nothing that he could do in both those situations. He was just too late to save the people that he was trying to save. And so it's affecting him now. And I'd love to see if we get a bit of a role reversal, because I mentioned this earlier, when we got the episode where Arissa was going to leave and stuff, and talking about how she didn't want to kill, I mentioned that I'd love to see Nolan have to deal with something like that, because he never really has those emotional things that carry on, beyond a couple episodes or so. And I'm hoping that this does. And I think if we don't get a complete role reversal, which we might not get a reversal, because Arissa did kill in this episode, but it was to save her father, so I don't think it'll be she's just going to go back to killing people and be okay with it. But I think Nolan has definitely changed based on those two big moments in this episode, and I'd love to see how that takes place. And based on the trailer, they obviously have something huge to deal with, which is also a really cool thing, because this episode easily could have been a season finale, considering the fact that they did kill off the main villain. It kind of set up the fact that, in this episode, the Omec, especially the father, he helps that human family, which was also an awesome scene, because as soon as he stopped that guy, I'm like, they eat other races. I'm like, how the heck is this going to look? As soon as he stopped him. And it was just like his teeth grew, and he just got like almost like saber-tooth fangs. They grew like really big, and then he grew an extra set of teeth on the bottom. And he just bit that guy in the neck and took him down. And it was like, that was a really cool thing, because I never really thought about it beforehand. Like, they're basically the alien cannibals. Like, they eat every other race. Or I guess they aren't cannibals for that, but they eat other races. Or other species, sorry. And it was just really cool seeing that. Like I said, as soon as he stopped them, the first thing I thought was, what's this going to look like? Because he's about to eat this guy. And it was a great scene. And then, of course, we have the stuff leading to him and Kinsey. And I guess I was kind of right. Like, her motive was to tell her all the, tell Stahma all of the secrets so that her father would have to kill her. But he does decide that he's not going to do that because he's changed his course of action. He's decided that he's going to try to have his race included, with the human race and all the other races on Earth. And I thought that was really cool. It allows their characters to not just simply be villains, but it's still a really big secret, and it's probably going to go back and forth because with him being Omec, despite what he'd shown in this episode when he saved that family, he had, he didn't have to in any way, shape, or form do anything that he didn't want to do. But he chose to save that family. He didn't continue the fight, but he did choose to save that family. And it could easily, that one great act that he did could easily be ignored especially from Nolan. If Nolan finds out they have an entire ship up in space with the rest of the Omec race and they lied from the beginning, he'd understand it because he's Nolan. He gets where people come from, but it's like, well, it's still technically a threat to me, my family, and this town which I care about. So it could, despite what he's done in this episode, become a really big issue once that gets out there. I don't know if Kinsey's going to tell other people so that she can try to get her father killed. Who knows what's going to happen with Kinsey now. Like, she's too new of a character to just instantly get killed off. Although that did not stop Stahma from instantly going back to her old ways when she was like, she is dangerous. And I was like, there it is right there. As soon as that happened, she was like, oh, I'm safe? I got something I need to say then. So I love that moment. And of course, it didn't really work. He was kind of like, don't really, we're not partners, so don't try to turn me against my daughter. So I did love the fact that it still wasn't working, but I really enjoy seeing her try it no matter what. Like, as soon as she saw, like, oh, he's changed his ways, well, she's got to go because, you can't be with us if she's coming in trying to eat everybody. And I just love that scene. She just instantly reverted back to her old ways because she knew she was safe 100%. And I love that because that's her character. That's what she does. She tries to manipulate people and get rid of her real adversaries, her tough ones. And, once again, she just tried. She, did what she does. So I definitely love that moment. Very minute, but it was like that one line. I was like, she's back. And that was all it took. But that was a really great moment. Jumping from Stahma to Datak, of course. Datak, I mean, geez, it was just really good. His moments, we got to see the flashbacks of him on his planet, which was also really amazing. We got our actual first glimpse of his home planet, or at least an alien planet in general. We finally got to see that, and it looked amazing. It kind of reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy, if you guys have seen that. Like, all the buildings were kind of white and stuff like that. But it looked amazing. They do a nice aerial view over a bunch of different random buildings. We see, like, the creatures flying, which kind of look like dragons. Like, especially when they did, like, the little close-up, like, right outside of Datak's house. It looked like a mini dragon of sorts. And it was just really cool. We got to see him from really young to about a teenager. And I really enjoyed that. We got like 3 separate, I believe it was 3 or 4 separate moments, and they were all really well done. It was funny that the actor who plays Datak ended up playing his own father. I thought that was kind of funny, and they do a different hairstyle. But it was still really cool. Like, and I think he did act differently enough where it worked. And of course, he was speaking completely in his natural language, so that was also pretty cool. Like, it was all subtitled. But it was just really cool to watch that. Like, it starts off, of course, it starts off with him saying the title of the episode, and he has the little charge blade, which I really love the fact that they show that came from his father. Like, I don't know if Datak is really going to change. Like, it's Datak, Tarr. Like, no matter what, that family is just, they're going to have their moments. Like, I'm scared, I'm worried, this and that. And then it's like, well, I'm out of that. Go right back to who I was, because that's just, and I think it happened for both of them, for Stahma and Datak in this episode. And we get the great flashback, the very first one, and his father's like, this is a man's weapon and you haven't earned it yet. And then they have it where he was meant to be killed on his own planet a long, long time ago, with his family, or with something that he did because he attacked someone with his father's charged blade. And we actually get sort of an introduction to his scar, which they kind of made up in this episode, but I'm totally fine with that because I love the scene, and it was like he learned an incredible lesson from his father, because his father knew, like, you don't really understand words, you understand actions, and he stabbed him straight through the hand. It looked really cool on the CG as well, because he held it there, and the glass was like basically melting underneath and like cracking and expanding. I love the way that that looked, so we got to see that, and it was a cool scene. And then, I believe there were only 3, so then the final scene was when he won the tickets to actually go off planet and go to wherever they were going, because they didn't know it was going to be Earth. And he talks to his father, and he's like, I won 2 seats, let's go. And his father decides to stay on the planet to basically maintain their heritage, in a sense. And he tells him, like, here's my weapon, carry it in my name. And he says like 3 separate things. I believe it was like greed, pride, and ambition. And I knew where he was going with that as soon as he said it, like, these are bad things and stuff. But as soon as I saw those 3 words, I was like, that's everything that he is right there. Throughout all 3 of these seasons, that's Datak Tarr right there. And he was the opposite of what his father told him to be. And he's like, these are vanities of the flesh, and, don't do that. When the honor dies, then so does the soul. And we did have that, reflection in the last episode when he decided to be put on the shaming rack. And I think that this was a great explanation as to why, because he had that moment in the last episode, where he almost lost his son. So he had that to reflect on and how proud he was of him, which he mentions in this episode. And then we get to see in this one, like, the actual flashback, so we can assume, kind of hope, like, oh, he was thinking of the last words of his father before he left his home planet. And, as it was falling apart, basically. And so he decided to honor his father in his dying moments and, have that, because he didn't want his soul, to die, because that's just who he is. So I love that moment. And they send him out, they implant him with the bomb. He goes to Ramtak, and that was just a great scene. Like, he's like, I need my charged blade, and it was like, alright, he has his classic weapon back. He gets up, he's like, you saved me from the shaming rack, it would have torn my limbs apart, so that means my body is yours. And that includes my good left arm. And he just takes the whole thing off. It drops everyone there. It was kind of funny. It was almost just like they were watching a sport or something. Everyone's just like, oh, and just saying all sorts of random stuff. I couldn't actually hear what anyone was saying, because they were all just saying like, oh, that's nasty and that's amazing and all this crazy stuff. But, he goes through all that pain and he chops it off. And then, it's like right after he did that, it was just like, can I get a moment? It's like, sure. And then he's just taken off. And honestly, when I saw that scene, like the very next scene of him just running on this random, dirt road, I was just like, that son of a bitch. And it was just an amazing scene to me. He was like, I'm getting the heck out of here. I don't want to blow up and die. Chopped his arm off, and he was just sprinting. And it was just an amazing scene. I was like, I can't believe this is how they did this. And I don't know how he's going to look throughout the rest of the season, if he's going to end up getting like a robot arm or something like that. I'd love to see that, because for one, I think that actually looked kind of cool. But I think it would be a little bit easier. But they also might not have that happen for him, maybe not until the next season. Because that way it does change his character. He has his, he has his classic weapon back. He only has one arm, so he can't exactly defend himself in a fight like he normally could. So it'll let us see sort of a more vulnerable side of him. And like I said, I don't know if he'll exactly continue, to honor what his father told him in his last moments. But he chopped his arm off, and he had a huge smile on his face at the end of the episode. Like, everything's blown up. Ramtak is like just ripped away by the flames, and just skin, flesh, down to the bones. Everyone's destroyed. And he's just behind this little rock, and he's just looking up at the sky, smiling with one arm. And it's like, I got out of that. I chopped this thing off. I let it, I chopped my arm off. One arm isn't worth one life. And he let it go, and he took off, and now he's out there. They're going to assume he's dead, so who knows how long he's really going to stay away from Defiance. And I think that's going to be a cool thing to watch because, of course, Stahma being with the Omec, we'll kind of have to see how that plays out because with Kinsey's plan failing in this episode, her next plan is probably going to be, hey, she's actually still alive and she's right here. So, you know, there's like, who knows what's going to happen with her, but he's outside of Defiance. They think he's gone and been blown away, which also led to another pretty interesting scene between Orisa and Alak. And it was, of course, very, very simple. All she did was put her hand on his shoulder. But they did have the scene a couple episodes ago where she was with the baby, where she was with baby Luke. And it was kind of just a little, very subtle thing, but typically those subtle things are put in there on purpose. And, you know, they kind of did a focus on it where it was on her hand at first, and then he grabbed her, he put his hand on hers, and then it focused like right on his hand, which was of course in the perfect position to show off his ring. And then of course it went to his actual face. But it seems like they're actually building something up between Orisa and Alak, who at this point I think are fairly safe as far as surviving, because, you know, I'm sure that they aren't going to kill off Stahma and Datak either, but they're going to leave Alak, hopefully, they're going to leave Alak alone because he is, you know, he has a son and he's going to father his child, and he'll at least be there when his mother can't be. So I think he's safe because of that aspect. And of course Orisa is like the number 2 character. It's like Nolan for sure, and then right under that is of course Orisa. Like the premiere of the series was, and I can't believe I actually remember this, but it starts off with them like in a roller on like a random CG dirt road, and they're just in a car talking with each other, and I believe like listening to music and stuff like that. So it's those 2 characters. They don't die. Like that's just how it's gonna be. So Orisa for sure is safe. I believe Alak is safe now based on what he's gone through this season. So, you know, they might actually be building something, and I wouldn't hate it. I think it would be pretty interesting. I know Orisa for sure needs it, and based on what's happened with Alak, he probably does too, where he needs someone to, you know, help him move on in a sense, or at least cope with it in some way, like Orisa has, but obviously, as we saw in the last episode, not 100%. When it comes to the violence, she can still have those bad flashbacks and see, you know, see Tommy and see the things that have happened that she'd rather forget. So it seems like they're building something. It may have just been random scenes, but it seems like they are to me. I don't know. You guys can definitely let me know what you guys think about that. But I feel like they're definitely leading up to something, and that's why they had, you know, just minor, subtle things that, you know, every TV show and movie ever always has subtle stuff that becomes very major. So I could easily be wrong, but that's what speculation's for, just guessing and trying to figure out what they're going to do for the future. And like I said, I wouldn't hate it. I like both those characters. I really love Alak in this season. I think he's getting... he's had a great development, I think, this season. I really enjoyed him in the last season because I've enjoyed his character. Like, honestly, I love all the characters in the show because everyone just has some crazy stuff happen. But him being the son of 2 very powerful people that both kind of try to be more powerful than each other despite the fact that they're married, that's made him a very interesting character. He fell in love with the human girl, he got married to her, had a child with her, and now he's lost her and he has to raise the son kind of on his own, especially now because he assumes his father's dead, mother's gone in the wind. He doesn't kind of want either of them anyway, despite, you know, that relationship that they have as parents and child. So, you know, he's definitely had more of a development in this season than the others, but I've always loved his character and the crap that he's always had to go through because of, you know, his parents, whether it's his actual parents or his, you know, step-parent, like his mother-in-law, from the finale of last season and the premiere of this one. But, you know, I don't know. Like, I loved everything they did about this episode. I'm excited to see what is coming for those 2 characters, if it's going to be something big or not, and it's just me speculating. But I definitely loved it. Of course, Datak surviving was really awesome. I'm glad he's alive because I was really worried about that based off of the premiere. They already took out 2 people that were really important, we don't need to lose anybody else. And this was an excellent way around that. Like, alright, he's still alive, let's take him down, use him as bait. And then he just cuts that bomb right off of him, losing an entire arm in the process. But he's still out there. Then that just means we're going to get a different version of him now that he has to survive with one arm. And it should be really interesting to see. So I love this episode. It was just definitely great all the way through. And like I said, I feel like this could have easily been like a season finale. Like, they beat the villain, Datak's alive, and just one arm just out there gonna do something. Stahma now knows that the Omec are actually all still alive, even though the plan has changed. Kinsey knows that she's safe, so now she has to come up with a new plan, which, like I said, could probably be telling Amanda and Nolan that she's still alive within Defiance. All this other stuff was kind of introduced in this episode, and then we still have the repercussions of Nolan losing those people. Amanda seems to kind of be okay with it, and I think that comes from her being kind of above the sort of grunt work, in a sense. You know, when you think, well, she's definitely done her, you know, had her moments for sure, but it's like, you know, she made that choice because she knew you're just gonna kill these people anyway when they walk out, and just pick them off one by one. But for Nolan, it's like we're a tight-knit unit as an actual army. Like, we defend each other. We're like, you know, we're bonded together once we go out here like this. And he lost pretty much all of those people. And, you know, we're going to get that in some future episodes. So they introduced some really, really cool concepts. Like I said, the stuff with Stahma, who knows? Datak, who knows how long he's going to be outside of Defiance. But I feel like that's going to have to be, like, his own storyline now, what he's going to decide to do with that. And whatever this new danger is, something, it's either an animal or a new species, is coming into the town for the rest of the season. Berlin is still gone. She didn't come back. That was kind of another speculation I had, where she'd end up changing her mind and coming back to help them. So that didn't happen. So she's still out there, and they still have the possibility to bring her back. And now it kind of makes me wonder if that was like an acting thing where the actress couldn't do it because maybe she's in something else right now, or if that was how they just wrote it. But either way, I'm sure, you know, she's going to come back. If it's not this season, then I think that will kind of let us know it was totally because she's in another show right now. But if she comes back later in the season and it's something happens, I don't know what could happen. But if she comes back, then that's kind of going to be how it is. But I like I said, I love this episode. Definitely my second favorite. It kind of just, you know, as much as I loved everything that happened, I feel like it just can't beat that reveal of Arissa almost killing Nolan during that flashback. Like, that is like the one thing. Like, honestly, all the other stuff was great, but that is the one moment in that episode that makes me say I would still choose that one over this one as my favorite. But this one is a very close second. We get to see the past of Datak Tarr. We get to see him growing up and taking these values and, you know, comparing that to the past 2.5 seasons of him, you know, basically not following his father and deciding to change in the last minute because he wants that honor, you know, in his dying moments, and then surviving, and just all the other craziness. Is a really, really close second episode, but I can't, you know, it just can't beat that little reveal from a couple episodes back. But I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, I have to ask you guys what you thought of Datak actually surviving in this episode by cutting his arm off. Because I thought for sure, okay, he was saved off the shaming rack, but he's gonna die, he's gonna have his actual final moments. And then even out of that, he ended up surviving, and they do keep him alive. Like I said, I was just like, that son of a bitch, he did it, and he lived. So I was happy and just like excited just from that whole thing, because it really shocked me. But of course, I want to know what you guys thought about it. So like I said, please comment below, let me know. And of course, thanks for watching.